mean, there are a lot of good questions to explore, real timeless questions. I think most people have thought about who are we, where do we come from, where are we going, what happens when we die, is there free will? I mean, at least I would hope most people have explored these. I think if you ever meet somebody who's never tried to answer those questions at a personal level, they're usually a pretty vapid person. Like they usually run out of anything substantial to say pretty quickly. And while I would say it's good to chew on those throughout your life, definitely don't go so far. I know I did when I was younger, kind of postponing a lot of life, trying to answer unanswerable questions, and spending a lot of time getting caught up in things. I mean, the reason they're timeless is because we can't get down to the bottom of most of those. But the older I've gotten, the more I have kind of zeroed in on what I think is, ironically enough, the easiest question to solve, but the one that sort of underlies all the others is really just, am I alone? I think avoiding loneliness is what drives most of human behavior. And I mean, there's all different ways that this shows up. You know, prolonged loneliness can produce incredible levels of cortisol, stress hormone. I mean, throughout a lot of human myths and history, struggles against loneliness and trying to establish relationships are kind of at the core of so many things that humans pursue. And the more I saw that this was really at the heart of so many problems that humans have, I mean, so many issues we'll face either stem out of or are worsened by loneliness or isolation. You know, one of the most pernicious things about experiencing some sort of trauma or hardship is the fact that it makes you feel alone. It can make you feel really isolated. And that brings me to kind of, as I would think through these, brought me to the next step, which is, well, what's the solution to loneliness? Which is obviously the cultivation of healthy, harmonious, mutually beneficial relationships. And I think that pursuit is really at the heart of human experience. I mean, it's really, that's where I think meaning comes from, is the cultivation of a relationship between two or more. I think the cultivation of relationships is the source of meaning. I don't think we can find meaning in singularity here or there. You know, an example I'll use in conversation with friends is the idea of the handle of a mug. You know, if you were an alien, you had no understanding of human anatomy, and we came down and you're exploring the earth and you saw a cup with a handle on it, you might wonder, what is the meaning of this protrusion, this shape? Well, the meaning in that is found in the relationship it has with your hand and the utility therein. And I think that viewing the world through a framework of, again, cultivating relationships at all different levels answers a lot of the other questions. A big one that always bothered me, and probably bothers a lot of you, is the idea of suffering. You know, why do people suffer? Why is there so much suffering? And my assumption is that if cultivating relationships is at the heart of why we're here and what brings value to us, well, then of course you would have suffering, because no meaningful relationships come out of just having a good time. Like, all meaningful relationships come from suffering together and struggling together. You know, if you really want to bond people together, they don't go have a bunch of fun together. You put them in a terrible situation together, and they have to work together and rely on one another in order to survive. So what, like, boot camp is, Hell Week is, it's all that stuff. I mean, speaking of which, I'm talking about loneliness and the value of camaraderie. I think it supersedes even basic stuff like food and shelter and even physical survival. I think gets superseded by the need and the desire to connect with one another. I think it's pretty common knowledge that soldiers coming back from a war zone where they're in very bad, physically very bad situations, but they're together, actually will report higher levels of happiness and joy and just general satisfaction in life than they will when they come back, stateside and they're in a supermarket with, no danger and tons of, cosmetics to pick from. It's because they have a shared suffering and a shared purpose. So I think that is the explanation for a lot of religions. See, I think here's the thing nobody tells you about religion is that it's really not about what you're worshiping or your customs or anything. It's about humans wanting to connect to each other. Traditions are about humans wanting to connect with each other in a meaningful way and have a shared narrative. And I think maybe when people become aware of that and they get to a point where they have this sort of, I don't know, it sounds like hippie bullcrap, just spiritual kind of awareness. They transcend the need to have religions in order to have that shared connection with others. Now, I don't know if it's necessary, if you have to have the specifics of shared belief and a shared religious narrative to really have that deep level of connection. I've seen it both ways. But again, if I miscalculate anything, let me know. If you disagree, let me know. If you have any, personal insights into that, maybe you were lonely and you figured out how to get out of it. I'd love to hear all that. Now, I'm sure some people watching this, you're probably thinking, just, if loneliness is the problem that most of us are experiencing, this intense atomization where everybody's isolated, everybody's in their own echo chambers, everybody has a curated stream that's specific to you and what you like, you could probably be a little flippant and dismiss it like, well, just, go join a pickup basketball league or something. And that's not the worst idea. I mean, oftentimes the correct answer is the simplest one that's right in front of you. And I do think making an effort to get out is going to be it's going to do a lot of heavy lifting for solving a lot of problems that can seem so insurmountable and so heavy. But at the same time, what's also helpful is reaching out and trying to connect with other like-minded people. So if I said anything factually inaccurate, I'd love to research that. And again, if I miscalculated anything, let me know.